Welcome to Crown TV. Immerse yourself with a captivating audio from our stories. We provide an alternative way to read books in audio. We upload many audiobooks as possible, from bestsellers to timeless classic. Subscribe and stay tuned for new upload.
Episode 326, New Alliance. Now, as the people didn't know who Alex Ambrose was, nor were they aware of their old master's death, Celeste decided that it would be a good idea and opportunity to bring all the gangs in the Appalachian region together and make an official announcement. Her words shocked everyone. They didn't understand how Georgina could have passed on her role as their master to some strange man. Although the disciples were shocked, they didn't dare object. The other gang members whispered to each other about the news, wondering what it meant for the Moon Palace. "Come look. This is the Master's ring handed over by Georgina herself." In a low voice to Alex, Celeste said, "Mr. Alex, please show your ring to the sisters." Alex slowly raised his left hand, the Master's ring on his finger. The emerald green light shimmered under the night sky. "It's really the boss's ring," whispered a gang member in disbelief. "All hail the new lord!" screamed all the gang members in unison. "Come see the master," said Celeste in excitement. When the disciples of the Moon Palace saw the ring, they all agreed that this godlike man must be their new master. For a moment, more than 700 female disciples of the Moon Palace kneeled on the ground to pay respect to Alex. "Welcome," they all greeted him. Alex had never had so many people kneel before him. "All of you get up," he quickly said. "Our master commands you all to get up," Celeste echoed Alex's message, but the disciples were too shocked to listen and remained on the ground. "What about our former master?" one of them suddenly asked. Georgina had been deeply loved by her disciples. They hadn't seen her for months, and they were worried. Although thinking about the deaths of Georgina and Zora made Alex sad, he knew he needed to inform the disciples of the Moon Palace of their master's fate. Georgina was in D.C., fighting against someone close to her that she used to train with. "She and Zora are both dead," Alex answered. The news hit the crowd like a bolt of lightning. The disciples of the Moon Palace were stunned. A cry broke out. Each of the disciples paused and recalled fond memories of their old master and her time with them. After a few moments, Celeste broke the silence. "Sisters, the old master has passed away, but she has found a better master for us. Under the leadership of our new master, we will restore the Moon Palace to its former state of happiness and prosperity. Now, our master has something to announce," Celeste finished, directing all the disciples to focus on Alex. The crowd listened quietly as Alex consoled them over their master's death and reassured them of his dedication to his new position, just as he had with the four maidens when he had first met them. In no time, it was clear that almost all the party was convinced of Alex being suitable for the role. Even if a small number were doubtful, they felt it was the best to trust their new leader and his vision. As a result, no one spoke against him, and he continued. "From now on," he said, his voice booming, "all of you present shall be considered allies of the Moon Palace. If any gang dares to spread evil in our country, the Moon Palace shall unite with you to defeat them. Yes, there may be times when you shall be called to stand with us, but the palace will not ask too much from you. If any gangs attack you, the Moon Palace will not sit idly by and will hand you support. No one could refuse such an offer. To have an ally like the Moon Palace, and the promise of a fighter as great and powerful as Alex, would be an enormous help if any other gangs were to cause trouble in the future. Seeing that everyone was satisfied, Alex concluded, "Let's form an alliance here today. We shall call it the Appalachian Alliance." Several gang leaders cried out. "Yes, I agree," cried a gang leader. "I agree with Mr. Alex," cried another. Then all the people cheered. "Long live the Alliance! The Appalachian Alliance will be an unstoppable force." "Don't kneel on the ground anymore," Alex said to the gang members who were still on the ground. "Now everyone is a member of the Alliance. We need to treat the wounds of all the injured, whether they are from the Moon Palace or one of our new allies." When Alex said this, all the people of the other gangs slowly rose, still stunned. They couldn't believe Alex was so ready to help them after they attacked the palace. "Celeste, let all the people here go inside the Moon Palace. It's too cold out here," Alex ordered. "Yes, my lord." Celeste ordered the disciples to open Moon Palace and let all the people inside. Callisto and the others were also helped, guiding people into the warmth of the palace. "Debbie!" At that moment, Alex remembered that Debbie was still hidden under the tree and ran to the hillside to find her. Debbie was still in a coma, her whole body shaking slightly. Alex picked her up and carried her on his back into the palace. He immediately found an empty room and placed her on the bed. Although Debbie was asleep, Alex could see a miserable expression on her face. She was frowning tightly, and her face was pale again. Even inside the warm room, Debbie still shivered. "Alex, I feel terrible. I feel terrible," she mumbled, dizzy. Just at that moment, Celeste walked into the room, quickly noting Debbie's condition. "The orchid, Mr. Alex. She will need that special orchid. I will send all my disciples to find one in the Appalachian Mountains." She turned quickly and walked out of the ward. Soon, her announcement could be heard throughout the palace. "I'm sorry to disrupt the festivities, but at present, the Master's lady's life is in danger. In the mountains grows a special orchid. We need to find one from the 1,000-year-old strain in order to save her life. All uninjured disciples must immediately go up the mountain, find as many orchids as you can, and bring them back to the palace immediately." Alex sat on the bed and held Debbie in his arms. "Debbie, everything will be okay," he kept murmuring. "They will all go find the orchid in the Appalachian Mountains. You'll be better soon." Alex felt helpless as he stared at her. Only the orchid from the mountains can save Debbie now, Alex thought. 1 hour slowly ticked by. Then 2 hours passed. Dawn was beginning to break when finally someone returned. Before, there would hardly have been anyone willing to go into the mountain to find the orchid, neither disciples of the Moon Palace nor the other gangs. Once they heard Celeste's announcement, though, more than 1,000 uninjured disciples had gone out to find the orchid in the Appalachian Mountains, just for Alex. But although all had picked orchids, they struggled to find one that could save Debbie. Either orchid was either too small or too young. None had found the special ancient strain of orchids that would save Debbie. Finally, the leader of the Grizzlies came in. He had a huge orchid in his hand. It was as big as a softball. "It's really a 1,000-year-old orchid," Celeste exclaimed, looking at the flower in awe and wonder. "Bring it," Alex ordered excitedly. He laid Debbie back on the bed and quickly grabbed the orchid. "Celeste, how can we use this orchid?" he asked. "Let me take it, my lord. The orchid must be boiled in a pot of porridge. Then Miss Debbie can eat it." Celeste said that was what Georgina did when she ate the orchid to cure herself. "Please do it. Boil the flour in the porridge and serve it to Debbie," cried Alex impatiently. "If she eats too much of the orchid, Miss Debbie will not be able to hold it down. Only a little bit can be used," Celeste stated. "The effect of the flour is strong. If you give Miss Debbie too much, she will die." She gave Alex a nod and left the room to prepare porridge. About an hour later, she returned with a tray that had 2 bowls of porridge on it. "My lord, here are 2 bowls of the orchid porridge. You and Miss Debbie shall have 1 bowl each." Alex took up a bowl and helped Debbie sit upright in the bed. He carefully fed her the porridge, spoonful by spoonful. After eating, her eyebrows raised, as if she was surprised. He watched, worried, his heart beating erratically. But when he saw her once pale face become ruddy, regaining a healthy color, he breathed a sigh of relief, and his heart settled down to a stable pace. Her eyelids fluttered, until, finally, she slowly opened her eyes. Episode 327, Healing for All. "Debbie, can you hear me?" Alex said in a low voice. "Alex?" Debbie stared at him, confused. She couldn't believe that she was still alive. "How do you feel now?" Alex asked. "I feel comfortable, and much stronger now than before. My head still feels a little fuzzy, though," she replied after a few moments. "Don't worry, Miss Debbie, that's a good sign. It means that you're getting better," said Celeste. An older man in his 50s came into the room. "Mr. Alex, this is a doctor from one of the foreign sects. His medical skills are excellent," Celeste introduced him. "He's come here to check on Debbie." "Please look after Debbie. She was given black poison water," Alex said. "Yes, my lord." The doctor went to the bedside. He looked at Debbie's face, checked her pulse, and then said in surprise, "You have nothing to worry about. Miss Debbie's pulse is steady at present, which shows that most of the toxins in her body have disappeared. There may be a trace of residue left, but after a period of rest, she'll be healthy and back on her feet." "Great!" Alex was overjoyed. "Debbie, can you hear me? The poison in you has been removed." He couldn't contain his excitement. "Now you're safe. Lie down and rest." He took the other bowl of porridge from the table and scooped it into his mouth. It was delicious, sweet and sticky, and he quickly ate every morsel. Alex and Celeste walked out of the room and around the Moon Palace. The palace had an elegant, ancient garden, with pavilions, flowing water, rockeries, strange stones and willows. It was full of beauty and wonder. Despite the palace's traditional design, every room was also equipped with modern household appliances, such as an air conditioner and a heater. There was definitely no shortage of money at the Moon Palace. Whatever they needed, they would be able to afford. Alex also noted that all the people were carrying bowls of the orchid porridge. After asking Celeste, he learned that she had cooked the orchid in a large pot. Now all the guests at Moon Palace had a bowl of their own, eating the porridge, which would, in turn, help them to quickly recover from their injuries. Orchids from the Appalachian Mountains don't last very long. As Miss Debbie can't eat it all herself, I've given it to the others, or else the rest of the orchid would have been wasted. Mr. Alex, you aren't angry with me, are you? Asked Celeste. Alex was in fact very happy, and as he looked at Celeste, his heart was filled with joy. But he wanted to have some fun with Celeste, so he pretended to be displeased. Fear immediately crept over her face as she saw him raise his hand high. She covered her ears and closed her eyes. However, the slap that she was expecting never came. She jumped slightly as she felt his hand rest gently on her head instead. She slowly opened her eyes and saw that Alex was smiling at her. She understood he was just teasing her. Mr. Alex, you were so bad. You scared me half to death. I thought you were angry, Celeste said, half angrily, half relieved. What? How dare you say the Lord is bad? Alex laughed. Oh, my apologies, Master. For a split second, Celeste had forgotten her place. She was a maid. It was considered inappropriate for her to speak that way to the Lord of the Moon Palace. Alex laughed again. Silly girl. Let's go and see Callisto and the others. Alex turned and walked forward. Celeste stared at his broad back and felt a wave of happiness wash over her. She gently touched her hot cheek and followed him. Alex came to Callisto's bedroom. As soon as he entered the room, he was hit with the faint fragrance of the perfume. In yesterday's fight, Callisto, Selene, and Luna had all been injured. Now, they were recuperating together in Callisto's room. When they saw Alex come in, they all stood to salute him. Praise to the Master of the Moon Palace. We shall call him Lord Alex Ambrose. Sit down. Alex hurriedly walked over and gestured for the three of them to sit on the bed. Forget all this Lord business. Just call me Mr. Alex, as you did before. Selene and the other three girls were surprised, but felt very happy. The three of us are injured and can't serve you, Mr. Alex. Please forgive us, Callisto said. Alex grinned mischievously. I know what you're trying to do, Callisto. Fine. Let me be your maid for the day. I'll take care of you all. Mr. Alex, you can't do that. The women were shocked. They couldn't let Mr. Alex take care of them. Alex Ambrose was the Lord. They were just maidens. Why not? Alex asked as several female disciples entered the room with bowls of orchid porridge. Alex told the disciples to put down the porridge and leave. He took up a bowl and went to Callisto first. Your hand is hurt, he said. I'll feed you. Mr. Alex! There was no way she could let the Lord feed her porridge. Open your mouth, said Alex. She did as she was told, accepting the first spoonful that Alex gave her. And again, she reluctantly allowed herself to be fed. She did not dare to speak this time. She only opened her mouth and ate the porridge. It was sweet. In fact, it was the best porridge she had ever had in her life. After eating the entire bowl, she felt much better. Next came Luna, and then Selene. Like Callisto, they were all fed by Alex. It was all too much for the maidens, but they were touched by his kindness and swore to be loyal to him all their lives. Celeste couldn't help but feel a little jealous as she watched the other maidens get fed by Alex. She felt a little left out and was angry with herself for only sending for 3 bowls of porridge. If there had just been one more bowl, she could have been fed some of the porridge too. Celeste, come sit down. She jumped at Alex's voice as it snapped her out of her daydream. Celeste sat on the bed with the others. They were like 4 golden flowers staring at him. He couldn't help but note their beauty as he looked at them, and they returned his gaze uncertainly, unsure of what he was thinking. "It's rare that the 4 of you are injured and can't fight. Ah, I have an idea," he burst out, confusing the maidens even more. "Mr. Alex, what are you talking about?" Celeste was concerned. "What's going on? This is not Mr. Alex. We are injured and unable to fight for him. Why is he so cheerful?" she thought. "You massaged me before. Today, I'll give all 4 of you massages," he said. Indeed, the Moon Maidens didn't know how many times they had ever had massages themselves. Every day they were serving others. Now, Alex finally had a chance to serve them back. As soon as Alex offered to give them a massage, the 4 girls immediately withdrew. Alex Ambrose was the master. They were supposed to serve him. How could they do the opposite of what they had been trained to do? "No, Mr. Alex, you can't do it," said Callisto. "You're the Lord. You can't massage us," said Luna, shocked. "It's too shameful," said Celeste with her red cheeks. "Ladies, I am the Lord, and everything I say will be obeyed. It was all settled today. If you oppose me, then you will be disobeying the Lord's order," Alex said. This time the maidens did not say another word, although they were still nervous. "Well, let's wash your feet first." Alex called 2 disciples. "Go and get 4 pots of hot water for your sisters to soak their feet." Episode 328, New Lord and Lady. The 2 disciples brought 4 pots of hot water and put them under the feet of the 4 maidens. Alex grabbed a small bench and sat in front of them. They took off their shoes one by one and let their feet soak in the water. First, Alex washed Celeste's feet. Her feet were smooth as porcelain, and the blue veins were clearly visible. They were light and delicate in his hands. Alex felt his pulse increase suddenly with nerves. He paused momentarily, giving himself a moment to calm down. Then he slowly poured water on Celeste's feet and carefully washed them. Celeste felt shy, but she liked seeing Alex bow his head and wash her feet so seriously. She felt the pain leaving the soles of her feet and let herself be happy for a moment. After that, he washed the other ladies' feet. First Celine, then Callisto, and finally Luna. As he attended to each of them, he noticed how different all of the maidens were. Celine's feet were the smallest, while Callisto's feet were the palest. Luna's feet were the most delicate and slender. When he was finished, Alex wiped the water off their feet with a cloth. The maidens sat on the bed, each of them feeling too shy and relaxed to break the pleasant silence between them. "All right, all 4 of you must rest now," Alex ordered as he poured the water out. The 4 girls immediately lay on the bed. Their feet, white as jade, dried over the edge of the bed. Alex noticed Celeste's symmetrical face, how Celine was the smallest of the 4 maidens, and that Callisto was paler than the others. Luna was the tallest, her long arms and legs giving her the appearance of a model. All 4 of them were beautiful and seemed even more so after eating the porridge. Alex shook his head. All he needed to focus on was taking care of the maidens. The 4 of them had taken good care of him and everyone else. Now he had an opportunity to repay them. "I'm going to massage you. If it hurts, let me know." He began to massage the 4 girls. First, he pressed the soles of their feet, then the shoulders, back, waist, thighs, and calves. He used a little force in his massages, which helped their sore muscles and made the women feel more comfortable. After 2 hours, he had finally finished massaging all the maidens. Massaging was a tiring thing. He hadn't realized how much hard work the ladies had to endure when they had to massage him. "How was that?" he asked as he rested on the bench. They sat up. They were so happy to be massaged by Alex. They felt as if they had been bestowed a great honor. As the Lord, Alex had the right to be cold and aloof and unfriendly, but he chose to be kind and make sure that they were looked after well. All 4 maidens truly believed that the right person had been picked to rule the Moon Palace. "Very comfortable. It seems that all our fatigue has been driven away," they gushed. "Yes, as soon as Mr. Alex pressed my foot, I felt the energy from Mr. Alex's hand like an electric current." "Very comfortable," exclaimed Celeste. "Mr. Alex, I think your martial arts have made you a fine masseuse," said Celine. Alex left their room, feeling pleased that he had managed to help them recover from the stress of the battle. After helping the maidens, Alex remembered that Xavier's body was still in the pine forest. He left the women, allowing them to have a good rest in the palace. He gathered a few disciples to venture out to the forest with him to retrieve the body and give him a proper burial. When they returned to the Moon Palace, many of the guild leaders from the outer sects were waiting at the front gate with their disciples. They were ready to say their goodbyes. After all, the palace had only been built to accommodate 700 disciples. It would be impossible for 5,000 people to all stay there at once. Besides, the Moon Palace was home to all the Moon Society's female disciples. They all agreed it would be improper for the outsiders to stay. It was time for them to return to their own homes. "Mr. Alex, we will always remember what you said last night about all our gangs belonging to the same alliance. If our gang is in trouble in the future, please help us. And in return, we shall be loyal to the Moon Palace. If there is anything you need from us, we will not disobey you." Before he left, Rocky Dalton, the leader of the Grizzlies, reminded Alex that he still had a lot of authority in various gangs in the area. "You seem to have been reading my mind, Mr. Dalton," Alex said with a faint smile. "Mr. Alex, my members and I shall take your leave now." They shook hands, and Rocky left the Moon Palace with hundreds of the Grizzlies' disciples. The rest of the gangs also bid farewell to Alex. By 2 o'clock that afternoon, all of the outer sects had left. Alex immediately went to Debbie's ward to find Celeste with the doctor, who was examining Debbie's pulse. "My lord, the poison is now under control, and only a little remains in her system. It's safe to say that she will be better soon," the doctor reported. "Really? That's great," he was elated. "So when will Debbie recover?" "It will be impossible to quickly remove the remaining toxin. Her metabolism will have to increase so that it can be excreted naturally. That'll take about a month. During this time, you must pay attention to her nutrition and strength," said the doctor earnestly. 1 month. That's not too bad. Thank you, doctor. As long as Debbie recovers, I don't care how long it takes. Celeste, give the doctor $150,000 as a reward. Yes, my lord. The doctor could have thanked Alex 1,000 times, expressing his gratitude continuously as he followed Celeste out to collect his payment. Alex sat by the bed and stared at Debbie while she slept. Now, he felt very relieved. After a few weeks, Debbie's condition had greatly improved. No one could ever have expected that she almost died, She appeared as healthy as she did before, as if the events from a few weeks prior had not occurred at all. Over the past few days, Alex accompanied Debbie on walks through the Moon Palace. As they passed by, they were always happily greeted by the disciples. "Good morning, my lord. Good morning, madame." Alex and Debbie had not only taken many walks together, but had also been managing the affairs of the palace. Alex had approved and commissioned the repair of the cemetery for $1.5 million. He also managed some external requests for assassinations that needed his approval. Although the palace disciples took this kind of work from time, to Alex's satisfaction, they were not reckless or bloodthirsty. His disciples only killed truly bad people, those who had committed various crimes. He also kept his promise to the other nearby gangs and ordered hits on criminals that were being targeted by their allies as well. In this way, the palace was not only able to make money, but rid the world of more evildoers. They had the best of both worlds. Alex also spent time teaching martial arts to the disciples of the Moon Palace. More than 600 disciples would watch and follow Alex, and he would have to single-handedly take charge of their training. It was hard work, but enjoyable. One day, on another walk with Debbie, they decided to go to the mountain behind the Moon Palace, where they came across a training ground. In the past, many female disciples from Moon Palace had been invited there to practice sword fighting. It hit them how amazing life was here. The traditional clothes, beautiful people, clear springs, cool breezes, blue skies, white clouds, and green pines pleased them both greatly. The Moon Palace felt like a fairyland. "It's all so wonderful, Alex. We're so lucky that we get to stay here for the rest of our lives." Debbie couldn't help but exclaim, looking at all the beauty around her. Episode 329, Shattered Dreams. "If you want to stay here, I'll stay with you. Just say the word and I'll always be with you." Alex looked at Debbie and smiled. These last few weeks being here at the Moon Palace with her had been the most relaxed he had felt in a long time. "You make me laugh." Debbie affectionately touched his nose with her pale fingers. She turned to face the lake and said, "After spending so much time with you, I can see that you are ambitious and you have a big heart. But you can't abandon your family. After all, you've got your parents and all your relatives back home. You've been thinking about going back to your family one day, haven't you?" Alex was speechless. He felt as if Debbie had stabbed him. Of course he had never forgotten his family, not for a moment. But if staying away from them meant that his family could prosper, he was willing to remain out of their lives forever. Unfortunately, ever since Nathan had defeated the Drake family back in Washington, D.C., the future of Alex's family looked bleak. What would Nathan do with Alex's father and mother if they fell into his hands? At his grandfather Lincoln's birthday party, Alex had also found out that George, the owner of Harmony Island, had betrayed the Ambrose family. George had turned his back on them for another family, the Mitchells, who had begun to plot against the Ambroses too. Would they be able to withstand an attack? In Alex's opinion, as strong and powerful as his family was, they were suffering from several problems from outside and within. If they weren't careful, hundreds of years of work, their legacy could be destroyed at once. "Alex, what's the matter?" Debbie asked anxiously, looking at his tense face. "I'm all right." He calmed down and gave Debbie a reassuring smile. "Let's go take a look at the lake." They both stood at the edge of the lake. The water was so clear you could see the fish swimming around the bottom. Debbie squatted down and put her hand into the water. Several brave fish swam over and nibbled on her fingers. "Debbie." When she heard Alex calling her, she turned her head. But instead of an answer, a handful of cold water splashed on her face, sending a shiver up and down her spine. Alex had already run away, laughing. "I'm gonna get you, Alex," Debbie yelled, glaring playfully at him as she stood up to chase him. Alex enjoyed joking around with Debbie and watching her chase him, running and laughing with her in the beautiful mountains, which made him very happy. The disciples of Moon Palace stood by looking at them, their hearts full. They felt that the Lord and his lady were perfect for each other. Meanwhile, in Baltimore, Chris Stedman received an update at the Stedman family villa. A few weeks before, when Alex had taken Debbie to the Moon Palace, Chris had sent 2 of his men to follow them. One of them had returned to Baltimore that day to give Chris a face-to-face report. Alex Ambrose and Debbie Stonehill, along with 4 other students, got off the plane together. They stopped off at the restaurant there, but only stayed for 2 hours while they ate and rented a car. In the restaurant, Miss Stonehill became dizzy. Mr. Ambrose was quite nervous, so they gave her some medicine. And then they drove their car to the Appalachian Mountains. We followed them for a long time, and using the heat sensor, we could see what was happening inside the car. We've determined that Miss Stonehill vomited blood inside their vehicle, reported the men. Chris's eyes were shining with delight. Vomiting blood would be a side effect of the poison. Once black poison water had been consumed, there was nothing in the world that could save the victim. When they got to the Appalachian Mountains, we stopped, because the Appalachian Highway is an endless road that leads up to vast snowy mountains. Only men with a death wish would go up there, they said. Then why did they go up there? Chris was puzzled. He couldn't figure it out. Do you think there are healers in the mountains? Maybe they thought they could find a way to save Debbie's life? The men had also been baffled when they saw the car drive toward the mountains. Or maybe they thought that Miss Stonehill was going to die soon, Melissa suggested. They could have taken her to the Appalachians for the scenery. She likes nature. Or Alex thought that she was dead, so we took her up the Appalachian Mountains to find a cliff to jump off himself. The mountains are covered in snow. Their bodies won't rot in those conditions. Maybe he had some romantic idea that they could go there and be together forever. Go on, what happened next? Chris asked his man. There's only one exit off the highway. We waited for them there. There's no other way they could have crossed it. If they were to return, they would most certainly have passed us. We waited there for weeks, but their vehicle never came back down. We can only conclude, Mr. Stedman, that Alex and those girls are dead. I agree, Chris, Melissa chimed in. The Appalachian Mountains are cold, and there's nothing to eat there in the wintertime. If they haven't been seen in a few weeks, they must be dead. Good. Chris thought for a moment. It was more than likely that Alex and his girl were dead. He turned toward the man and said, Tell your associate waiting in the Appalachian Mountains to look out for their car for another few weeks. Then he can return, and I'll pay you both $75,000 for your work. Thank you, Mr. Stedman, sir. Thank you, thanked the men. Chris, now that Alex is dead, can you take me to see your father? Melissa asked, looking at him expectantly. See my father? Chris, who had been reveling in the joy of Alex's death, was shocked by her words. He looked at her strangely, which left her speechless and confused at his bewildered expression. You told me that once Alex is dead, you'd take me to see your father to discuss our wedding. You also said that you'd already taken care of the rings and were still finding a wedding dress. Aren't you going to show me everything now? I can't wait to be your wife, said Melissa with joy. She reached out to grab him and jump into his arms, but she was pushed away. Melissa, you are dreaming. You are just a commoner. My family's a big name in Baltimore. Do you really think that I would marry you? He stated bluntly. Chris, how can you do this? You said that you would marry me once you killed Alex. You said that you wouldn't give up until he was out of the picture. I gave up so much for you. I even offered myself to you. Chris, why are you looking at me like that? Melissa stopped, noting that his face had quickly changed. This was not the man who had been so gentle and considerate with her before. Oh, you mean to act like you're innocent now? Do you think I'm a fool? I'll tell you the truth. I've been using you from the start. As it's likely that Alex is dead, you're useless to me now. But don't worry, I'll pay you for your work. Take the money and go. Chris took out a credit card and threw it in her face. Why did I believe him? This was just a stupid dream. Melissa suddenly laughed. She bent down and picked up the credit card. As she looked at it in her hand, she realized that this dream, everything she had imagined, had all just stemmed from her desire for money. Chris Stedman, I don't want anything from you. She snapped the card in half, threw it on the ground, and walked out of the villa. It was all a dream, Melissa. You are ridiculous. For a dream, you killed people. And in the end, what did you get? Although her eyes were full of tears, she laughed wildly. Episode 330. Alex is dead? Chris watched Melissa run away, shaking his head in disgust. Crazy girl. He dismissed the other man and took a few minutes to think about his next steps. He picked up his phone and dialed his father's number. He wouldn't say anything about Melissa's part in Alex's death, but he felt it was time for his father to hear the news. Art Stedman was having a meeting on the other side of the city. After being defeated by the Clifton family, he had been depressed and taken time away to rest. But now he needed to get back to work. Despite his failures, he still worked as hard as he had before, going to and from his various meetings on time and conducting them in high spirits. He was awe-inspiring and still well-respected amongst his colleagues. On the inside, though, he felt empty. The failure of the war had destroyed 30 years of hard work and crushed his spirit. He felt like a walking corpse. Art was sitting in a meeting when he saw that his son was calling. Even so, he simply hung up and carried on. Immediately after, he received a text message from Chris. Dad, come to the villa tonight. I've got news. Things are going to turn around for us. Turn around, he thought over. Art's brain kick-started. It was as if his mind had been a barren wasteland, but now it had been watered, and the first few sprouts of delicate green grass were beginning to grow. Of course, he had his doubts about this news that Chris had promised. He simply texted back, "Good." But he allowed a glimmer of hope to spark in his heart. After he finished work that evening, he directed his driver to take him to the family villa. "Dad, you're here." Chris immediately stood up when he saw his father coming in. "What's up? Go ahead." Art was calm as usual. He took off his coat, hung it on the hanger, sat on the sofa and lit a fine Cuban cigar. "Alex may be dead," Chris told his father. Art stopped smoking his cigar. He looked at Chris, surprised, but his sharp eagle eyes were focused. "It's like this." And Chris sat down and shared this story with his father. "His car hasn't been down for weeks, so I'm almost certain that he's dead in the Appalachian Mountains," Chris concluded. "He's dead?" After listening to his son, Art believed that the probability of Alex being dead was quite high. His mind processed the information quickly. "Father, that girl Melissa also revealed to me that when he was in New York, Woodsworth and Ken Stokes worked for Alex. His family is rich, too. Considering what Alex did in the past, I think he's the banned son of the Ambrose family," Chris continued. Art was surprised yet again. Thinking briefly, it seemed true that Alex would be the banned son of the Ambrose family. He took a drag of his cigar and exhaled a puff of blue smoke. "The statement issued by the Ambrose family is very clear. Alex is no longer considered to be a member of the family, so if we kill him, they won't do anything to us," Art concluded. "Great minds think alike," Chris grinned. Like his son, Art also believed that getting Alex out of the way would open up many opportunities for them. It was likely that he would be able to restore all that he had lost and return to power with capital and interest. Later, Art stood up and went to the sitting room. He picked up the telephone, paused for a moment, and then decisively dialed the number to call the Blood Brothers gang. This truly was a chance for things to turn around for him. But if he wanted things to change, he would need help from the Blood Brothers. This news needed to be disclosed to them as soon as possible. "Hello, Mr. Stedman, is there any news?" Tyson Slade, the leader of the Blood Brothers gang, answered. Based on the time of Art's call, Tyson could guess why he was calling. "There have been some recent developments that I must share with you." Art lowered his voice. "It seems that Alex is dead." The sentence dropped like a huge bomb in Tyson's ears. "Who killed him?" "It seems. What does that mean?" he asked. First, Alex had defeated Damon Walker, which had caused a big problem for the Blood Brothers gang and their plans to return to the East Coast. Now someone had killed Alex. How many more unknown martial arts talents could there be in this country? The thought worried him. It appears that he was killed with black poison water. We can't completely confirm his death because no one has found his body. However, he and several of his female students went to the Appalachian Mountains, and no one has come down in weeks. So we're guessing that he's died in the mountains. Is it not possible to survive in the Appalachian Mountains for a few weeks after taking black poison water? As far as I know, it's a complicated terrain. There are large areas of no man's land and several gangs living in those communities. No one has ever survived there for a few weeks. The probability of survival is less than 1%, so that's why I'm telling you. Alex most likely died there, Art said. Well, Damon's teacher wanted to avenge his death, but it seems that won't be possible now. It's a shame, Tyson lamented. He had hoped that the Blood Brothers would be the ones to destroy Alex. At least that way, his death would be seen as their revenge against the martial arts world in their ongoing feud. But whatever. It's a good thing that he's dead, Tyson shrugged. It would have been a great obstacle for our gang to return to Baltimore with someone like Alex running around. Now that he's dead, everything will be much easier. My thoughts exactly, Mr. Slade. When are you going to return to Baltimore? Art urgently hoped that the Blood Brothers gang could return as soon as possible. They could help him recover his previous position of influence in the city, and even dispose of the Clifton family, so that he could unify Baltimore's underworld. Don't worry, Mr. Stedman, our time will come soon. You can count on that. And with that, Tyson hung up the phone. He sighed deeply with a mix of relief and frustration. He couldn't believe Alex was dead. Tyson dialed Lee Harshaw's number. He needed to be told the news. As the phone rang, he looked at the large screen on his wall, images of sea sharks gliding slowly and menacingly by. "Boss, do you want me to go to Baltimore to avenge Damon?" were the first words out of Lee's mouth. These days he carried his hatred for Alex deep in his heart. He felt like he couldn't breathe, and he wouldn't be able to again until he had avenged Damon's death. "Alex is dead," Tyson said, getting straight to the point. "Dead?" It was a simple sentence, and yet Lee was confused. "How can he be dead? He was supposed to die by my hand. He can't be dead. If he's dead, I can't avenge Damon. Boss, who killed him?" "He was poisoned. And then he went to the Appalachian Mountains. He hasn't been seen in weeks. He may have died of the poisoning, or he may have frozen and starved up there," explained Tyson. "Ah, that punk. It's not fair that he died like that." Lee gritted his teeth. "I'm so sorry." Despite his apology, though, Lee couldn't help but be pleased. He began to jump up and down and punch the air with glee. He knocked the towering trees around him. He cracked and splintered the ice-covered lake with his fist and smashed a large stone into little pieces. He just couldn't believe it. Alex was dead.
Thank you for listening to Crown TV. Please don't forget to subscribe, share and turn on the notification button.